Nightlife in the big city. In many places on our planet, human beings have done away with natural darkness. The change was fast, maybe too fast for our body clocks.
For millions of years, organisms have adapted to the rhythms of day and night. We've only had artificial light for comparatively few decades, and its use is increasing exponentially.
Meanwhile, over 80% of human beings worldwide live with...
Light pollution is not something I normally think of, but it probably should be living in a city. And I do always note when I go back home to the north, wow, you can really see the stars. But rather than it just being an aesthetic thing, being able to dive in through the great variety of subjects and the scientific basis and the visual demonstrations, I could see that there's more than just the aesthetic problem. It is messing with nature and messing with animals' ecosystems, and ultimately the impact on us as humans are a part of nature. So I thought that this was a really important piece, and I would love to integrate this into like a classroom discussion as well if I'm teaching about the environment. But yeah, I thought the cinematography was gorgeous. And I think those visuals were really important to make that impact. It's one thing to hear it, but seeing, I find, is really believing. And that's a good way to get people rallied about it and thinking about it.
Bringing up points and thoughts that seem so obvious and yet aren't really addressed and haven't really been addressed in the mainstream yet. It doesn't just state problems, however, it brings up, again, really common sense-based solutions that would take very little to implement in these city and dense areas so that we can protect not only our environment, but the animals, the nocturnal animals that populate it, and just show again some respect back to our environment and be able to enjoy it to its fullest because we miss out on things due to this over illumination. It's a kind of dramatic irony, right? We see too clearly that we don't see enough.
I really loved seeing the night jars. These birds get bundled up and tagged to be released into the wild. I thought this was a fascinating process. And also just they were very cute birds getting bundled up in little sacks, which I thought was cool to see. I liked the fact that we looked at how this light pollution affects animals positively and some negatively, but overall it negatively affected the ecosystem because it was bringing about such a big change. So how the night jars actually hunt better because they can be out longer without the light, and how the spiders benefit from it because they're being able to capture all these insects that are attracted to the light, but overall it's bad because it's negatively affecting the ecosystem. I thought that was cool to see. And it was really amazing to see that even plants were affected by this light, and that they don't only pay attention to sunlight, but it is like all light that affect these plants. I thought that was also really cool. This film had a lot of beautiful shots of the stars and the clouds and sped up shots and time-lapse shots of those. It had some really helpful graphics that I appreciated, diagrams and visuals that helped us understand what these experts were talking about.
I've heard about light pollution before, but this excellent film gives a detailed explanation as to why light pollution is so harmful and provides solutions. The camera work is excellent, so many close-up shots of insects and other wildlife that are really being harmed by nighttime lamps. The narrator is so confident and articulate in this one. I also really appreciated the scientists' detailed explanations and the CGI globe and stylized human eye with the description of how melatonin levels go down with nighttime lighting. The pulsing, energetic soundtrack underneath really added to the urgency of this very important film.
I do like that it makes you think about how something like that, which is so normal, has had an effect on the environment. I like the use of graphics to display the extent of the environmental issue, but also helping the viewer to understand the effects well. I think was very helpful. The documentary really does well to make you sort of consider the effects that human comfort have on wildlife, or has rather on wildlife and the environment as a whole. I think viewers are going to be able to consider for themselves sort of the cost of how we live in the modern world.
Comparison between, the history of our planet. We understand that electricity has been with us just for a few decades, really, just a couple of centuries, whereas Earth has been around for thousands of years. So this is basically the humans in the film we see how humans are and electricity is affecting the rest of nature. I think it was a very interesting concept, especially getting to know that there are movements around that want to get basically turn off the light and just have the planet as it was without electricity overnight, because it's not only damaging the animals and the environment, but also is taking a lot of resources from our planet, because electricity has to be made somewhere, as we know, and using resources from the planet, they're not going to last forever, and that's also impacting with the climate changes and all the issues that are going on nowadays. I think the documentary was very well shot and very well told, with a great usage of B-rolls and interviews, and an absolutely stunning cinematography, especially when we're looking up at the sky, to the sky and the stars. I think it was absolutely beautiful.
I think that it does a great job of talking not only about light pollution and not being able to see the stars, but it takes a more in-depth look at the impact of the environment around us, and also at solutions that have been implemented in other cities around the world and what that looks like.